3 weeks out from the Olympia. We're here in San Antonio, Texas at the Muscle Factory home gym. Have a pull session A today, so it starts a little more lat focused. Also had my lab work pulled this morning, so having that done 4 weeks out, so give some insight to optimize health, and having Merrick Health kind of coordinate that for me. We'll get in this session, I'll lay you out my visual updates, what's kind of going on, my changes I talked to you about last time, and just do a walkthrough of the workout. So let's jump into it. First exercise I'm doing is a hammer strength pull down. So I do this single arm. The machine diverges, so it'll kick the elbow out. So I do lean over and rotate into it to keep that elbow tight to the hip. That's where you're gonna get a lot of lat. And like cues that I think are really helpful for training the lat is drive that hand out in front of you to the wall, like you're trying to drag it and down, and then drive that hip, that elbow down to the hip. So we're trying to keep all that really tight. We'll put a lot of emphasis on the lat. Just do 3 sets here, 8 to 12 reps. I forgot my grips I normally use, but going more supinated. I've had some issues in this bicep with some tendonitis, but I've having dry needling done every week, which actually feels really good starting off the day. So that's been a huge game changer for me on prep around my knees, and also like some tendon stuff that I get. So if you haven't used that, give it a try. It's definitely worth it. A key on your back work is control the eccentric. See, so many people just let the handles come up, fly up, and on all their movements. But that's where you can keep tension on the muscle, where it's also can put out some of its highest output and load, and really emphasize that stretch position when the muscle's at its longest. That's like we have probably the greatest potential for stimulus for growth. Load these things is the worst part. This back day is like so many plates to load. Right, so after your first lat exercise, moving on to an upper back exercise. So on this day I like rotating between the two, so I get good even output from both. Then I can go back to a lat movement after this. I love using the prime row. It's very unique in that you can load that lengthened position right at the start. Can't do that with nearly any other back exercise. So that's why you'll see my loading, it'll be like a 2-to-1 ratio. The top peg will be double the weight of the middle peg. That way you can have higher loading off the start, and keep that ratio as I just build up, and I'll keep it the same throughout all my work sets here. So I'll do 3 sets here, like a neutral grip, just so I can really drive my elbows back as far as possible. That's the goal on this one. It's upper back work. So we're trying to get full scapular retraction and protraction. That's the real emphasis Here. Yoga block. One of my favorite hacks in the gym. If you can't reach the handles, block it up with one of these. They're lightweight, put them in your gym bag. Also works great for like hammer strength pressing. So you get under the handles and press easier. Huge, huge benefit. Even sitting on them for a leg press. If you get lower back pain during your leg press, this can be a huge additional benefit too. All right, so last week we talked about my check-in. I was like, I'm pulling down. I'm gonna drop 100 grams of carbs off. I add some clean in. Well, 4 days later, I checked in. I pulled off 3.5 pounds. I was 234, which would have said I wasn't gonna go below. Looked at visuals and I'm like, man, I could walk on stage like this. You could probably see in the video here, here's my current like physique now. And man, I'm pretty much good to go. So I went ahead and added 50 grams of carbs back into my diet, pulled the clean out, and weight came up a little bit, but now it's been coasting back down. Yesterday I just added another 50 grams of carbs in, so back to the diet that I was previously on. So seeing weight come down to 234, it's like a really, really good fasted look in the morning. Training, I come up about 3 pounds. Could nearly walk on stage like that. So looking at a very close to stage look of what I've already found this far out. So from here out to Olympia, it's now just toggling food up and down to make sure I'm fueling training in here. It's gonna be the best thing to hold on to muscle, doing everything I need recovery-wise, so no injuries happen, and just easily just kind of coasting to Olympia, which makes it pretty simple for this far out. Still at 10,000 steps a day, no cardio in place. So this is gonna be a relatively easy walk into the Olympia and a much bigger version from Vancouver as well. All right, so third compound movement for the session, Rogers row. It's lat focused. This machine diverges away. So see me kind of rotate out towards where the elbow would finish. So I keep that elbow tucked tight. A key to make this very lat biased is when you grab that handle, drive it into the ground. So you almost try to drag the handle across the ground as you row. It'll keep your lat very much involved in it. Where this really puts a little more focus for the lat is kind of your upper lat, teres major area, while like that hammer strength, it has a little bit more focus into the lower lat. But that's why we do both, to fully train all fiber aspects of the lat. This one's also really cool because it starts with a pivot point. The heaviest spot is right when you start, and as you row back, that lever arm pumps up, the weight comes over the pivot point, it gets lighter. So normally it's really hard to finish your row. This one matches the resistance curve with the strength profile really, really well. So I'm always looking for machines that can do that with back. And this one does it excellently. There's been some easier and harder things about this prep. The easy thing is that getting down to 212, it's a constant just chase the scale you end up in turn being really lean because I have to get my weight down. However, flat is what it is. You do as much as you can afterwards to fix it. The hard part with open is that you have to get condition there, but there's no scale weight to chase down to. So now it's really balancing the full look, but also enough condition, which psychologically it's very hard for me to not just want to chase every last glute line. So balancing that is just a really hard piece. The far easier part about doing the open is that I do have the opportunity to like add food back in, and the fatigue side is so much easier. It's such an easier prep on the tail end of this, because getting down to 212, it's all fatiguing all through peak week till I can bring some food up. This, I feel so much fresher. So it's a pro and con to it, but overall, a better look and an easier prep is I'd take any day, and the better look over 212. But it's not as psychologically easy to self-coach. I get in my head a little bit more than with 212. All right, so moving on to isolation work for the session. Do reverse pec deck fly. Cam settings on this prime one, I set up on cam setting 5, which means it starts really heavy off the beginning. So again, loaded the lengthened position. Rear delts get a little fatigued in the session, so it gets really hard to finish the movement. On this one now we can set it up to where it gets really light, when normally it would be very, very hard. I do lean forward. I think you'll find you'll be able to get more range of motion out of that humerus and that shoulder joint. And if you stand real upright, sometimes you get some impingement. This can help avoid that. For time efficiency, I also do a compound set or superset with dumbbell hammer curls. I mentioned this before, but the brachialis, that muscle between the tricep and bicep, that's what it gives you that arm width. So I like to train that first, and also prevents me beating up my biceps a little as much, starting with just a supinated curl. One thing I think is really important to include in your athlete development process is just emotional growth as far as emotional intelligence goes, because what you're going to be constantly challenged with is a lot of outside noise that could drive a certain emotional response in you, and that can really throw you off your own game. I think there's a few components around that are important. For one, understanding and recognizing the emotion that you do have, why and where that comes from. And once you get that far, then you can take actions of what you should be doing about it. You need to build that resilience mentally to where nothing can stand in your way of what you're really trying to achieve here. And like I've even incorporated this prep therapy sessions to address the self-development and the mental side, just like I would the physical side, trying to understand myself better in those reactions. So even a great test that you can do is the Myers-Briggs test. It's a personality test, which gives you insight into your own emotional responses and where you would thrive in competing or even business-wise. And based on that, it'll give you a lot of learning where you can thrive and where weaknesses are too. Also, what's so important is visualization. I do that a lot in my preps, visualizing the exact experience of being in line, going on stage, walking on stage, going through poses, call outs, like exactly how I want it to be. The brain doesn't differentiate between actual experience and what you even imagine. So trying to just relive that moment in that positive light will translate to what you'll actually experience going out there. That, and then positive self-talk. You have to talk positive out in the world. Think like, oh, I'm just not gonna be able to do it. Like, hopefully I just don't get last place. Like, no, believe in yourself. Hey, I can win the Olympia. I know what I can do. I know my abilities. And all those things combined could give you like the mental strength to live out the champion mindset and champion goals that you have for yourself. All right, last exercise for pull day, another compounding set. Do a dumbbell Y raise. This isn't the best movement for like shoulder hypertrophy. One requirement to like get overhead is the lower traps will pull down the scapula, retract them into press. which a lot of people are really weak in their lower traps. It's where a lot of shoulder pain comes from. You don't have good stability overhead. So this is almost like a dual function here. I'm training the lower traps, but also it's just like an idea for strengthening that overhead position and for shoulder health. It does give a little bit of side delt and front delt volume, but again, your more limiting factor is kind of more the traps, and that's the focus. And then I compound set this with a cable curl, so just working the biceps now. Just go back and forth, do 3 sets here, stay between the 10 to 15 rep range, and that is it for the pull session. All right, that wraps up today's session, guys. Thank you for tuning in and all your support. 3 weeks out, it's been wild. It's just flying by these weeks. I look back at videos and it's almost here. So just trying to enjoy every single moment, and I appreciate you all for tuning in. Any comments, questions, leave them down below. Happy to include those in the other video and answer anything that you want to know. Till next time, we'll talk to you then.